maybe more. I think that if I can understand correctly, the intention of this meeting is to make sure that collectively we can strategize with one voice. This is Orinzumaduma. Obviously, we have a strong force. Think about this. We have 275 members of parliament. Nzima has only 3 MPs out of that 275. It is obvious to me that if even the members of parliament will be stronger, they will obviously will need a very united Nzima behind them in everything we do. I have listened to some of the comments and a lot of the things that has been said. Document be okay. Corporate social responsibility programs, young boy, in the millions of dollars. Hello, Jubilee Partners programs, Jomoro, Evalua Jomoro Jura. Oh, what is happening? And Elembele. I just want to, before making a very important point, I'll give you some ideas about, and I wanted to go back on how some of these things started. I hope, are they listening to me? Now,
yes, we're listening.
Any program here, Mr. T. Jomoro, Jubilee Partners must say, they sponsored an agriculture program with a company called Bivot, a Zlimbu community, Ampon Cassava, and orange fresh potato from 2017 to 2018. Bonye, Ampon Cassava and orange flesh 2017 to 2018. All Kabnasu Azo. They said they did a cassava program to empower coastal communities. These are their reports. 2017 to 2018. ASNAP implemented Jubilee Partners sponsored vegetable project in Ahobre community, greenhouse, 2017 to 2018. The list goes on. Evaluate Jura, the Jubilee Partners sponsored a project by Bivot in Domli community, Brewery community, cassava and orange fresh potato, Achinim community, cassava and orange potato, Asonti community, vegetable production 2018, Elembele Beku, Ampon cassava, Nalekwele, Ampon cassava. They had 2017 to 2018. TechnoServe implemented a poultry project for 200 people in Sanzulu community 2017 to 2018. I mean, the list goes on. Now, the reason why I bring this point, and I also have here and I booklet. You can see a complete disconnect in terms of what these oil companies are reporting in their corporate reports of what they are doing, whether it's in agriculture, health, education, to these communities, and whether or not even what they are doing has an impact. This is very, very important. But you asked very important questions, so I thought that I'm about Bobo because the beginning of oil production, a lot of the issues we are discussing today were envisaged that potentially, if we do not address them, there could be problems. One, when the issue of revenue came up, how is oil revenue going to be managed? How was it going to benefit? At the time, I was a deputy minister, but at the risk of exposing some of the things we did, we worked closely with a lot of the stakeholders in the Western region to demand that in the passage of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, but law and Bayalimo, okay, is Guamagana Benyala 100%, about 10% more heritage, 15% for stabilization, 70% our budget. The argument we made was that at least give 10% of that money to the Western region specifically, so that it will be an allocation to deal with some of the issues that will come. This argument, stakeholders rose show in the course of the passage of the law, we will know that a lot of the chiefs spoke out on that. Unfortunately, by the time we finished the roadshow and went to Parliament, this proposal was defeated. Was defeated with some argument that, okay, how do we put 10% aside? Ghana is a unitary state. It's not a federal state. Because if we put 10% aside, now vote or the other 10%, I mean, that argument went on. So it was obvious to me that that didn't come up. Today, the question we have to ask is that after about 13 years of oil production, has Western region benefited, has Nzima specifically benefited in oil production? We have a long list of things that has happened in Nzima, obviously. And of course, I'm sure that everybody will point out that, for example, before oil production, and all moved to quota by asphalt, Sensoro bridge, I mean, a whole lot of things that will be said. Now, but the question really is that scholarship is true. Kakras na FPS as well. I remember that as even a minister, more than 60 Nzimas in the highest places went to study abroad. Some of them are laboratory engineers on the ENI ship in the Tello field, but they are not enough, as we can say. So we still have some engineers all over the place that I can identify with Jombro and other places, but they are not enough. I think the issue right now is what has been raised. One, we see Mogala, Ghana, your biggest institution, Imale CSIR, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. And that Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, they sponsored a research, and their findings were clear. They said that they did not find a direct link between petroleum operations and fishing activities. Now, that is what was argued. In fact, one of the arguments they made was that, in fact, the Sagasan seaweed, at the time, and the Sierra Leone, oil, and Sierra Leone, weed in Dong, and the argument was that if you go to Sierra Leone, other places that are not producing oil. But the real issue now has to go beyond whether it was the oil companies that are responsible for seaweed. I think the real issue now has to do with the closest people who are closest to the oil production. What strategies are in place to support them? I think you brought a point about the PRMA and the fact that we'll say royalties when oil is being produced onshore, was reservoir, was reservoir. You know, once I identify an area, obviously land compensation, royalties will be paid. Now Ghana has gone with the attitude, if somebody wants to prove impact, then they have to prove it. Now, a question could be who Mela, I have gone through everything. It is obvious to me, the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, the Pasela, what you have followed are regulations to deal with Section 24(3), which will deal specifically with the question you asked. That is not in place. And I can tell you that it is not in place. So one of the things that must be done is this. Melan na issues ba law there will be a pass. It calls for new regulations. The Minister of Energy, Parliament, local content amendment for new regulations to deal with events that has emerged. So one of the things that probably can be a takeaway from here, we need to engage the government of the day. And let me make it clear. I have been out of government for 6 years. I have even tried, and this is something that will surprise all of you. I was the energy minister for 4 years. But in the last 6 years, because of our Ghanaian system, even to engage ENI or TELO has not been possible because I'm an opposition MP. That's our system. But that is not the issue we are talking about. How do we deal with this issue that has been raised legally? Legally. The second issue.
Can you please get people who have opened their microphones to please mute so that we can listen to Honorable Kofi Amabua?
The second important issue, oil companies, they will point out that they've intervened with education programs, scholarship. Again, we all know that it is not enough. Yes, we can point to, for example, ENI programs where they've done health intervention from Jomoro to Elembele. We've seen chip centers being built. We've seen agriculture program, but really, do they address the current challenges? We've seen Oil Enclave Road all the way from Jomolo all the way to all of our place. But again, is it enough for what we are seeing? And if we agree that these are not enough to address the current problems we are having, then I think I want to agree that the key to doing this is a collective force where we all agree in going forward to try to make sure, for example, fishing community, we even supported them. We all agreed that they will write a letter to the Ministry of Fisheries, the EPA and others. They brought the letter. We engaged, me and my colleagues, members of parliament, we engaged the Minister of Fisheries. The Ministry of Fisheries assured us that he's going on a tour in the Western region to address these concerns, send a proposal to cabinet so that government, normally, you have to, the government of the day will have to come up with corrective policies if it is law or regulations to address that. It was obvious to me that the minister, when I found that he made a talk, but he ended up in second year and came back to Accra. So really, some of the issues that were be expected to be addressed by fishermen probably were not. But yes, there are a lot that has happened. There are a lot of things that has happened, but we have a lot of challenges. The other problem has to do with one. For example, I keep quiet. Know why? I was one of the first people that went with ENI to Sanzo. As soon as we got to the issue of land compensation, it became family, it became Manzone. Before we know it, there was an overthrow of a chief, there was a new chief, there were, before you know it, no consultation, nobody will be involved. Before you know it, ENI has paid something to family, and the story continued there. And then so later you come to find out that, oh, but this is really short-term problem. One of the things that ENI will say is that for 6 months, we gave people food for free through the World Bank intervention. But we knew from day one that that was not going to solve the problem. Unfortunately, you are not even going to get a chance to be consulted. And these are some of the issues that I'm talking about. But I think that there is mama. Okay, you did the bio compare to one. Young ones, Nemo Yamri, you put it by it. Yeah, Kakaka Yelegana on Wesma. You be a the history of how major projects, Mokaka, all Ghana, or the government, even at the time, tried everything to move them away from Islam. Everybody knows whether it's the Ghana gas project, whether it's the ENI project, because strategically they argue that also gas when you are so there. Let me ever do a pipeline yet, and he ain't dealing with anybody. Now, Kakaka said, you sir. Gas value as on a pipeline line. Who is even going to argue the gas more about it? And that was tried. Luckily for us, a lot of us fought and stayed in Islam. The reality now is that how are we in the long term going to make sure that the initial benefit that we got, one of the things we fought was Ghana Gas Board, for example, must involve our people, our elders. We champion it. How has the impact of, for example, our rely on our Ghana Gas Board been? Or are they just basically not taking him seriously on the board? How has he been strategizing with stakeholders to make sure that when he's on the board, he has the power he needs to move our agenda? This is where we are. It is clearly the case that we don't trust ourselves. We don't even believe anybody, and everybody is throwing the blows at the eagle. If you check in Nzima, everywhere. In fact, we don't strategizing because that's the fact. Fishermen specifically in Ghana, and I'll talk about that. One of the issues one, fishermen make sure but there are also problems with the fishing industry. One, Benji Feleka. Nothing if you fele, nothing links felengi mo within a period monyaka felemola wala yachibemuala. It is obvious you been your problem. So Bekanke Yireka more dynamite eka tema fetch fela. They are caught to dynamite there will be a problem. There's a war going on about these matters. So even as we are fighting to deal with government on the issue and interest of fishermen and people along the coast, some of the issues that we have to deal with are this. Around the government, for example, Environmental Protection Agency, NADMO, National Disaster Management Agency, they are supposed to set a marine resource center and a lab close to our area. It has not happened. In that enclave, there has to be periodic research on all of this. It has not happened. It can only happen when we are collectively strong with a voice. And I'm very happy that we can do that going forward. And that was it.